What's up, everybody? It is August 1st, 2025, which means we are in the month where college football begins. So I'm going to hit you here with some college football takes. 5 teams who I think will surprise and outperform their projected win total, 5 teams that are going to disappoint, and a few Heisman sleepers that I think you should be throwing some cash on before the season starts. Let's get to it. What's up, everyone? Here we go. College football is almost here. Camps are opening up. It's August 1st. We have games starting here in a few weeks. I wanted to get to this, obviously, a little bit of betting, a little bit of takes here before the season kicks off. And I wanted to talk about 5 teams that I think will, right out of the gates, disappoint and underperform their projected win totals. Before we hit it, please hit that thumbs up. Please hit subscribe. Like always, if I missed anybody, if you disagree with my takes, drop it in the comments. Feel free to let it fly. I got thick skin and can take it. Bring it on. All right, 5 teams that I think are going to disappoint this year. Starting out of the gates, I know this is a tough one. Prayers up to Coach Prime, but I do think Colorado is going to take a step back this year. It can't be too far of a step back because obviously they weren't incredible last season. But look, you take the best player in college football off the team, two-way starters. You got to replace 2 starters with 1 guy. Their quarterback obviously is getting replaced. Salter is coming from kind of the non-Power 5 ranks. We'll see how he steps up and is able to lead that team. And let's just face it, man, they lost a lot of really good weapons on that team. Wester, obviously Hunter. They lost Jimmy Horn Jr., offensive linemen replaced, guys transferred out on defense. So I think the Buffs are in for a little bit of a rough year. It is also a little bit out of their control that I think the Big 12 is going to be pretty sweet this year. The former Big 12, with a lot of teams, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. We'll see if they can bounce back a little bit. Arizona State, obviously looking to return back to the playoff. I think Colorado's in for kind of a rough road ahead. And I think that projected win total of 6.5, they go under here. The next one up, USC, man. Look, Lincoln Riley, the shine is starting to not sparkle as much anymore. We'll see how much Caleb Williams really did make an impact on that program. And for Lincoln, the talent, it just has been underperforming. We'll see if their defensive woes can kind of improve a little bit here. They obviously had a few guys transfer out. And I just don't know, man. I don't know if he is getting quite the same talent level and facing the same types of teams that he did when he was at Oklahoma. But obviously the old Big Ten, much tougher division. USC being down in LA is traveling a lot more than they did at Oklahoma. Wears on the players, wears on the young kids. They're currently at 7.5 wins. I think they come in just under that and right at 7, kind of thread that needle. But man, I just don't see USC really taking the next step for that program when you look at the roster and you look at the talent level that's out there. Next up, a little bit of a hot take here. Look, I'm a huge Dan Lanning fan. I think he's building a great program. What was already a great program, but kind of taking Oregon to the next level. But wow, they have a lot of production to replace from last year. Starting with their quarterback and Dante Moore, who everybody thinks is going to be awesome. Evan Stewart goes down, obviously, out for the year. Man, I just think they're going to come in under that 10.5 win total. Again, facing tough competition in the division. Again, I could see them starting out a little bit slow. They have a fairly early matchup at Penn State, I believe. And I think there's just a lot of unknown with the team. I do think Oregon will remain as a, top 10, top 15 college powerhouse over the next, 3 to 5 years. But I think this is going to be a little bit of a step back to rebuild what they lost in this last draft. Next up, this kills me to say, everybody knows I'm a little bit of a Miami homer, even though I'm not from Miami, but 8.5 wins. You lose Cam Ward off of that roster who carried them through. Man, they probably don't win nearly as many games last year without Cam Ward. I think Mario Cristobal still has a lot left on the table as an in-game coach. Carson Beck, I'm just not a huge fan of. I know he had a lot of hype coming into last year. I just don't know if he's quite the guy who's going to carry them to where they want to go. You've got Clemson, obviously, has got big hopes and dreams this year with stacked roster. We'll see how they look right out of the gates versus LSU. But Louisville's on the come. SMU looks good. And then obviously we'll see what Belichick does in North Carolina. I think they're going to face a tougher road for sure this year. They lost some guys, obviously, to the draft. They lost, more guys to the portal this offseason. And I just don't know if Carson Beck can quite fill the shoes of Cam Ward, who covered up a lot of issues and holes and gaps on that team last year for the U. So under for 8.5 wins for Miami. Ohio State is the last one that I have. Look, Ohio State's going to be really good. They always are. They replenish. They just recruit nonstop 4- and 5-star guys all across the country. You've got the best player in the country on that team in Jeremiah Smith. There's no doubting any of that. But again, similar to the Oregon story, I think what we're seeing is college football is very spread out in terms of the talent throughout the country. You have a lot of guys that are choosing other programs because of NIL and what that's created and some of these Power 4 conferences. So no, I don't think Ohio State's going to be bad, or we're not talking about 5-6 wins here, but I do think 10.5 is pretty, I guess it would be extraordinary if they get to 11 wins. I'll say that. And again, a tougher division. These teams are coming for them this year. They lost, I can't even count how many guys. I do know that they returned Caleb Downs, obviously, on defense, but I also believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ohio State is replacing both offense and defensive coordinators on the staff. So that's just a lot, man. It's just a lot of transition. It's a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball. New quarterback at the helm. Right out of the gates, they got Texas. That game is at home. But yeah, I think Ohio State comes right under that 10.5 mark. Probably 9 wins would be my guess if I had to put money on it today. So that's my 5 teams I'm projecting to disappoint this year: Colorado, USC, Oregon, Miami, Ohio State. 5 teams that I think are going to overperform the projected win total. Starting with Florida, DJ Lagway down there in the swamp. All the hype is on him. He looked pretty good last year as he started a handful of games with Graham going out. I think Florida definitely improved on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a lot of returning production as well on offense. They've got running backs down there, multiple guys who can carry the load. I think Florida can win games in a few different ways. And I think, like, at the end of the day, this is a make or break year for old Billy. He has to get it done this year. I think you could see 7-8 wins. I know the schedule is extremely tough and what it looks like on paper, but I think Florida is going to be ready to answer the bell this year, guys. 6.5 wins, I think, is just way too low for him. I'm not saying Florida is going to all of a sudden win the SEC and, pump out 12, 13 wins this year, but I just think 6.5 is way too low for a roster that's pretty stacked. Again, same system with Napier now and Lagway entering his second year. Out of the boot, he seems healthy and ready to rock and roll. Give me over 6.5 wins for the Gators. Next up, no one's still really talking about him, but Matt Rule just wins everywhere he goes. Nebraska, they're projected right now at 7.5 wins. You got Dylan Raiola returning for his sophomore season. They have improved the roster greatly on both sides of the ball. And again, I mentioned it kind of right off the cuff, but Rule just wins everywhere. It's a second year there. I expect dramatic improvement with what he's trying to accomplish and what that program is going to do. I anticipate a leap forward in Lincoln this year. So 7.5 wins. Give me the over for Nebraska. I think they surprise some people out there in the Midwest. Next up, 8.5 wins for Arizona State. Look, everyone thinks that they lost Cam Scatterbo, which is going to be gigantic. Don't get me wrong. But they returned 16 starters across the board. And I think more defensive starters than anyone else in the Power 4. They returned Sam Levitt at quarterback, Tyson at receiver, who looks healthy or sounds like he's going to be ready to rock and roll to start the season. Man, I don't think Arizona State's going anywhere in the Big 12. I think 8.5 wins, they shoot over that. I wouldn't be shocked for them to return to the playoff. I really think that the Sun Devils are building something pretty special out there in the desert. So give me over 8.5 for Arizona State. Next up, man, this one feels dangerous because of who it is, but man, give me the Aggies and Texas A&M to go over 7.5 wins. I mentioned it before. I think the day and age of, the Saban, 10-year dynasty is kind of over. I just think there's so much talent spread out across the country at different programs because of NIL, because of everything else that's involved. I think the Aggies are right there talent-wise with a lot of teams in the country. Obviously, you got the 12th man down there, tough place to play. I think they can make some serious noise in the SEC. Mike Elko, another guy, he's going to have that defense rocking and rolling. I think Marcel Reed at quarterback is explosive and dynamic. I believe they returned all 5 offensive linemen from last year, so that's obviously a positive check mark for them. And they got 2 strong running backs. I think Texas A&M can control games. I think they're going to run the hell out of the ball. I think they're going to play good defense. And I think if they can just play or not turn the ball over, they can not shoot themselves in the foot, I think they're going to be in a lot of games. So I think Texas and A&M goes over 7.5 wins this year. Next up, Iowa State. 7.5 wins is what they're projected at. Matt Campbell always has a good program, always has a good team. Everyone's going to see, Higgins and Noel leave and really freak out, I think. But they returned 9 offensive starters, and pretty everyone on the offense besides those 2 receivers, which they will replace. And I think they're always, again, another tough team. They play sound football. I think the Cyclones kind of return back to, being a solid program once again. I think 7.5 wins is too light. I think they go over it. So for my 5 teams that are going to overperform this year, I got the Gators, I got the Cornhuskers, I've got Arizona State, Texas A&M, and Iowa State. Now to 5 sleeper Heisman Trophy candidates that I'm throwing some dough on to start the year. I mentioned him above. I think DJ Lagway at plus 2,000 is a pretty nice bet. Look, as a dual threat freshman, he was the real hyped up quarterback coming in, got a chance to play in his first year, which wasn't anticipated really. I think Billy Napier's offense could get him 3,500 plus total yards. I think if the Gators, can kind of deliver as to what I think and what I mentioned above, through that tough schedule, Lagway's going to be on the list. Again, if they have a bad season or they kind of do what Florida Gators have done the last, 5, 6 years, no, he's not going to be on the Heisman candidate list. But if Lagway can live up to the hype and the Gators can roll through a tough schedule against some really prominent teams, Texas comes into the swamp, things like that, don't be shocked to see Lagway make some noise, in the candidate list here for the Heisman. Next up, another team that's been kind of down in the dumps the last few years. They get incoming quarterback John Mateer, Oklahoma. He's currently sitting at plus 2,500. Look, I don't know how many people watched Washington State football last year, but Mateer is legit. This guy can run. This guy can throw. He is super explosive. He is fun to watch. I kind of look at him. He's a little bit bigger, stronger, faster version of Johnny Manziel. Now, don't think of Johnny Manziel, the NFL player. Think of him as the Texas A&M guy. He gets his offensive coordinator. That's who he followed from Washington State. Man, I think you're going to see Oklahoma run and gun this year, and I think it's going to be pretty fun to watch. They get Jaden Ott transferred in as a running back. They got Burks back at receiver. I think this team is going to be just fun. Think back a little bit more to the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma days. Tough schedule, SEC obviously, but I think John Mateer, for the same reasons DJ Lagway is kind of on my list. If Oklahoma can make some noise and knock off some of these top 10, top 12 teams and surprise some people, it's going to be because of him, in my opinion. And I think he's definitely somebody to kind of throw a little bit of coin on early on to take some shots. The next 3 are a little bit longer odds. I got Austin Simmons down at Ole Miss. Look, he's another kid with a lot of hype. He's a dual threat playmaker, gets to play in Lane Kiffin's offense that is always going to be explosive. It's always going to set him up for ideally easy throws, down the field throws. If he can use his legs a little bit as well, paired with that, I don't see any reason why this kid can't win a bunch of games and put up some pretty monster numbers this year. So I want to throw a little splash on Austin Simmons at plus 4,000. I think that's a pretty solid bet there, in my opinion. Next one up, we're getting a little deeper into the odds here. Baron Morton, Texas Tech. He's currently sitting at plus 8,000. Texas Tech is one of the more intriguing programs heading into college football this year. Morton has been around forever. He's 23. He's going to play in this Big 12 that doesn't play defense, as we know. He gets a few hyped up matchups, and Texas Tech is a team that loaded up in the portal this year. They have a bunch of returning talent, especially at the receiving position. I think Texas Tech is going to be in play with Arizona State at the top of that, with Kansas State and a few other teams. If they can pull out some of those wins and Texas Tech can, shock some people, I could see Baron Morton having a little bit of that like Tyler Shuck type rise from last year at Louisville. So at plus 8,000, man, I definitely want to get in on some of that. And then the next one up, I think he's definitely a flyer. Obviously, the odds tell you that, but Jed Fish knows how to coach offense. Desmond Williams Jr. comes in at plus 10,000. I think you need to watch out for this kid. The Huskies always rebound every few years and reload whenever they have a good coach. I think this kid up in the Northwest is totally getting slept on. And I think, he comes in with Coleman at running back, Boston at receiver. He's got weapons. He's a dual threat guy. Man, at plus 10,000, I wouldn't be shocked to see Washington make some noise and be pretty explosive this year on offense. So those are my 5 sleeper Heisman candidates as we enter camp: Lagway, Mateer, Simmons, Morton, and Desmond Williams. So that's what I got. Again, feel free to drop in the comments, guys that I missed, guys that you're betting on that are sleepers. Look, I don't want to hear any Arch Mannings or things like that. Like, we all get it. Like, they're absolutely going to be in the front running. They're going to probably have really good seasons. If there's anybody I forgot, Jeremiah Smith, like, I don't need to know that Jeremiah Smith is going to put up good numbers and is going to get talked about for the Heisman. I'm talking about deep sleepers. In addition, if you have any teams that I miss in terms of that you're just all in on, going to outperform their win totals, or teams that you were just totally selling stock on, these guys are going to be terrible. I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Let me know. College football is right around the corner, baby. Let's go.